Hello everyone, this is Brandon Lewis of the Painters Academy, and I'm so excited to have Tara Riley here, someone whose work I have admired for going on a decade now. And she is going to bring some advice and recommendations to you that could change your business forever. Now, Tara is no longer CEO of Fresh Coat Painters, but is now COO of the Academy for Professional Painting Contractors, and her chief goal is to help you scale your business successfully. And I'm very excited to welcome you to the program. Welcome, Tara.
Well, thank you, Brandon. I'm excited to be here for sure.
All right, so what we're hoping to do with this interview is to really just have a tableside conversation. You can see we have our wine here. It's not anything too formal, but the information that we're going to be covering can be very impactful to people. And so today what you can expect is for me to talk a little bit about Tara's background, some of the future things that we hope to do at the Academy for Professional Painting Contractors, and a few initiatives that are going to be launched. But before I do introduce Tara, the first thing I want to talk about is why we're even here today, why Tara and I have partnered up. So the first thing I think that's critically important is that we have different perspectives at the Painters Academy. Of course, I had my own business. I've coached hundreds of businesses. But Tara's experience in the franchise world and in the corporate world is completely different. And we need to expand the team building, the leadership, and the management resources here at the Painters Academy. We need to help improve the scaling pathways for our smaller members, but also to allow our larger members to discover how to do leadership and management for non-field direct reports. It's very difficult. It's a very challenging thing. Very few people are good at teaching folks to do that. And there are also a variety of done-for-you services that you and I have talked about that if we don't put them together, owners likely do not have time to do it. And it's important because it will bring so much repeat and referral revenue to their business. It will help them be found, and it will help them target more lucrative neighborhoods in a way that doesn't spread their marketing budget thin. And then finally, for years, owners and members have been asking me to put together peer groups, and that's something you have a extraordinary amount of experience in, but not just any kind of experience. It's successful experience. That's the most important
That's the
kind.
best kind of experience.
And so for all those reasons, I'm glad that you're here. So last thing I'm going to say, because I'm going long here, I've been doing this for 10 years. And Tara is the first person that I have ever felt comfortable bringing into the Academy family because I completely trust her with members. Her advice is sound and solid even if you don't want to hear it, and sometimes you will not want to hear it. She does not preach the gospel of making you feel good about your bad habits, but instead she gives you the tools that you need that can help you reach those levels of success that maybe up until now you've been coming up against a difficult challenge. And then finally, her track record is impeccable, and we're going to talk about that a little bit today. So first, what attracted you to the Painters Academy? Why in the world would you be delusional enough to think that working with me would be enjoyable or fun? Let's talk a little bit about what made you want to do this, because it's a huge departure from the corporate franchise world. So share a little bit about that before we get into your background.
Well, absolutely. Well, Brandon, I think you know that my greatest love is working with business owners. It's one of the reasons I was in franchising for so long. Now, certainly, I ended up in leadership roles, which I also love. But my true passion is for helping business owners grow and scale. It's what I've done at every stop in franchising, and it's what I did at Fresh Coat as well. But when I will tell you that when we first met, when I first went to Fresh Coat and I needed help with bringing some systems in, you brought some amazing systems to the table that we were able to use at Fresh Coat to help grow our business. And So I immediately had an admiration for, kind of your values, your business acumen, what you brought to the table, what you were trying to do with APPC. I loved it. And I think even back then I told Tom or one of my VPs that I said, if I ever retire from Freshcoat, I want to go to work for Brandon. So here we are. I didn't really know that was going to come to pass, but when it's time to make a change, it was just, I think it was just, I happened to call you and we started talking, and it was just, I love what you're trying to accomplish here. I think, I can bring more things to the table to help our business owners to grow and scale, and I'm excited.
Well, one thing I think it's important, I prayed for some time for God to send me someone who could help me in the areas that I'm not the best in. And one of those areas is hiring and managing people. Like a lot of entrepreneurs who are very growth-oriented, we're good at our discipline. It could be sales, it can be operation, it can be something else. But when push comes to shove, acquiring talent and managing them is not like our go-to strength, and it's the thing that we tend to avoid. And that's really where your strength is in spades. So you have helped a lot of businesses increase profitability. You've helped them scale. You've helped them develop leadership teams, and you have a lot of coaching in the home service industry in particular, which we're going to get into some of that. But generally speaking, for a home service business, painters in particular in this conversation, what is your general business philosophy about finding success and growth?
Well, I think my general philosophy in terms of scaling, and the thing I have seen throughout the years of coaching people is really, it's about people. A lot of times I think we think it's about leads and marketing, but it's really about capacity. So one of the things I've seen in helping people scale is that the first mindset that you have to really, I think, acquire is that you can't do it all yourself. There is a limit. No matter, you can have an S tattooed on your chest and wear a cape, but the bottom line is that even you, Brandon, I think when we were talking, I said, are you ready for some help? Because, at a certain point, when you're trying to do everything yourself, you're going to reach a capacity. And the only way to get past that, is really to start hiring other people. And I think, quite honestly, that terrifies a lot of business owners. And I think even terrifies you a little bit, like, oh, who am I going to hire, right? So, I think that's one of the pieces of the puzzle. Like from a philosophical standpoint, it's really understanding capacity and understanding the, what are the things that a business owner, the mindset things and the tools that a business owner needs to really get through that and to grow and scale.
So a lot of people will be asking in their mind, what kind of chops does this lady have, especially in a male-dominated industry, which is another reason that I think I'm excited about having you here, because men tend to have some clear spots, and we tend to, generally speaking, have some big blind spots. And having someone that can think more like our best client, which just happens to be the lady of the house in many cases, from sales, marketing standpoint, even operations. So bring our viewers up to speed first on the amazing growth that you were able to bring to Freshcoat Painters. And they're really, it's in my opinion, three areas. Number one is the number of units. Number two is the volume of the sales. And number three, the expansion of your team at the corporate level, because that is the key to growth for all of our owners, is that expansion of the team, bringing on good talent, retaining them, nurturing them, and holding them accountable to hit goals. So talk a little bit about your Freshcoat journey.
Okay, so when I first got to Freshcoat, we were doing right about $15 million in system revenue across our franchise system, and I had 5 employees at the corporate level. I think at that point we had somewhere around 75 on paper businesses out there. Fast forward 9 years, and we were at right at 70 million, somewhere around 180 businesses, and I now have a team of 23 people that's, there to help support. Obviously, that's quite a journey. It didn't happen overnight, but it happened strategically. It happened intentionally. Part of that process is planning. We planned for growth. We planned to make that happen. We had a deliberate system for adding more franchise owners. When we add more franchise owners, we have to have more support. The great thing about growing is that you get more resources, and when you're making more money, you have to think about, if you want to grow, you've got to think about, how do I reinvest in my business to grow? So one of the, as I mentioned, mindset is people, but it's also about investment, right? So as you're growing and scaling, one of the things you're going to be considering is, okay, as my profitability grows, some of that I'm going to want to plow back into investing in my business for growth. And that you want to do that deliberately, right? So my journey at Freshcoat, obviously the most important part about that, it was painting, right? So we've, not only, it's interesting in franchising is that we have two business models we have to run. First of all, we have to be intimately acquainted with the consumer facing, how do you run a painting business? How do you maximize residential repaint, commercial repaint, all those same things that each one of the APPC members are facing. We had to be intimately acquainted with that and help brand new owners. By the way, and that's something really to think about, we're taking people who have no experience at all. Zero experience.
Zilch, can't paint.
Have never, yeah. In fact, in a lot of ways, we wanted people who hate painting because they know why a customer will buy painting. But quite honestly, so we're taking people who have no experience in the trade and ramping them up from zero to, our goal was to have people over 350,000 in the first year. And then to continue, we like to use the term double. And that's if you're growing by a 26% clip every year, you double your business every 3 years. And that's quite doable, by the way. What's beautiful about this business is you can grow in chunks, I like to say. When you add the right things, when you add the right capacities, you add another crew, you add an estimator, you'll grow in chunks, and it's pretty cool. That's one of the things I love most about the home services businesses. It's very scalable.
It's very scalable. It's very lucrative.
Very
for the
profitable.
most part, you put $5,000 in, you get $10,000 out, often in a few days to a week.
Yeah.
And you can't do that in retail. You can't do that anywhere else. It's a fantastic industry.
It is.
So what made you wake up one day and just say, it's time for a new challenge?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. Even a year ago, I don't think I was saying it's time for me to make the change, although I was approaching that. Interestingly enough, probably only about 20 years ago, I was working with a personal life coach type person, and it was just one of those exercises, and they said, well, when do you want to retire? And I said, well, I'd really like to retire around 55. Now, I did nothing to make that happen. Financially or otherwise, when I started with Freshcoat, almost 10 years ago, nobody was saying, hey, at year 10, I'm out, right? But it's funny because I just turned 56, so I'm pretty close, and it's all of a sudden one day I realized that it was time. I have things change in your life, right? And I have a significant other who's wanting to step out of. He owns a business, has owned it for 45 years. His son is taking it over, and we have the opportunity to do things and need maybe just a little more flexibility. And anyway, so I started looking at what it really takes to drive a corporate business like Freshcoat, and what I really love doing, which is helping business owners, and felt like I realized, it was time for my Freshcoat owners. We'll benefit from having fresh eyes and really good leadership, which is important to me. That I have to tell you, I have a soft spot in my heart for all of our Freshcoat owners and what they've done to grow. So I would never want to leave them in a place where they're not getting a great advantage by getting some fresh eyes. And for me, I felt like all of the things that I had learned and brought to the table were going to be fantastic, that we could help the owners that are involved with APPC and ones who haven't even joined yet. I think we have the ability to make some great changes. And one thing I really liked was the fact that, having worked with you really for almost 10 years, I knew that you and I have strengths that really complement each other. You're really strong in areas that aren't my greatest superpowers. I really feel like I have what I'm bringing to the table, and I'm sure we'll talk about that, is going to be things that will add even more depth and greatness to APPC. So,
well, I'm excited. When you're putting together a jigsaw puzzle, you don't grab the pieces that are the same and try to cram them together because they don't fit. If you've got two people with the exact same strengths and the exact same weaknesses, you really have not added much to your business. Often you've added problems, and so we've got a very good overlap in places. When people think about franchising, when people think about scalability in particular, the name McDonald's probably comes up more than almost any other business, simply because there are so many units. It is well known. People have experiences with it, both from consumption and marketing. That's really where you got started in scaling and systems and franchising. Talk a little bit about your time at McDonald's and how it laid a foundation for helping painting contractors build their business. And one other thing I would like to mention before we talk about that, some of the biggest breakthroughs that I've been able to bring to the painting industry came from my life in politics and nonprofits.
Exactly.
How to love on your list, how to maximize repeat and referral donations, which in the painting world is transactions or projects, how to put together referral relationships, which in politics were different constituencies and interest groups. And that's something that was completely missing and to my knowledge was not discussed in the painting industry and to a large degree still isn't. Yeah. And so when you come from a food service industry and you come into a home service industry, you get to look at it and bring new ideas, and those out-of-industry ideas are often the most impactful. Talk a little bit about your time there at Freshcoat, or not at Freshcoat, but rather McDonald's, and how it allowed you to give people extra value.
Yeah, Brandon, the longer I'm in business and the more I've been in leadership, the more I even actually appreciate the foundation that McDonald's built. It's really amazing. And for those of you who've worked in fast food or worked for McDonald's, you understand and appreciate, not only do they have a large amount of units, but it is the consistency, right? You can go, I've been to McDonald's in 5 different countries, and, a Big Mac is a Big Mac and the French fries taste the same. And, that is a testimony to systems and processes that are just, to the nth of detail. But, even as a young person, I started working for McDonald's when I was in high school. Things I learned about customer service. I learned about, speed of service. I learned about getting along with other people. As I became a manager, I learned leadership. I had to hire a lot of people. I realized probably one of the greatest gifts I got from my time at McDonald's is I have probably hired thousands of people, quite literally. I've managed people at all levels. I mean, when you're managing a fast food restaurant, one of the stores I managed was pretty high volume. We had about 100 employees. I had people that were 15 years old, and I had people that were 70 years old. I had people from all walks of life. I had college students, and you learn a lot. You learn a lot about leadership. You learn a lot about setting goals. You learn a lot about production rates. I tell you, where I learned capacities and production rates was really at McDonald's, because you have to, everything from how many French fries do you need to have at a certain point? I mean, as silly as it sounds, how much food do you have to order? I mean, all of those logistics things are baked into my brain somewhere, but it really was about understanding how to take people, get the best out of them. It really was the leadership stuff and the comfort level with hiring. I realized, for me, as we were talking about hiring, when I think about I need to hire someone, it's like, oh, good, I get to go shopping. I mean, we're going to bring new skills into our organization. I'm going to get to work with...
That's how I feel, Tara. No, not so much.
No, I know. So, but, I wasn't always comfortable with it. I can, and I realized that, most business owners are not comfortable with that. And so, it's just a tremendous blessing that I got out of just that experience and didn't realize it until much later. I'm like, wow, that was really a gift. There's so much I could go on. We could spend hours talking about what you learn from McDonald's, but it's really where I cut my teeth on scaling and leadership is like what I like to say. So,
well, let's switch gears and talk a little bit about your very extensive experience in home services, both at the independent level, your own skills, working with franchises, because painters tend to do this thing that's probably not very helpful, a little myopic in the focus, and that is that if you don't have experience painting a wall, your advice is null and void and worthless. But yet if you only take your advice from people that their only skill set is painting a wall, your business will be ran into the ground, which some of you have experienced already. And so you have this experience from outside of the painting industry, but then you have a lot of experience that is home service. And I have said before, and people bridle at this, a man in a van is a man in a van is a man in a van. Right. And you're either if you're in service, you're either in a man in a van business or you're a man in a box business, one of the two. And even if you're a doctor or an attorney, you're a man in a box. Right. People bring you their problems. So talk about the different home service industries that you've worked in and discuss, some of the things you learned there.
Yeah, my first shift to home services was actually when I went to work for Enhanced Wood Renewal, and it's a cabinet and floor refinishing company. They actually have some proprietary processes, but that was an eye-opener for me because before that I had been at McDonald's, and then I'd actually been at Sport Clips, which was another retail, totally different, obviously, but so, coming to Enhance, all of a sudden I realized one thing. We talk about scalability. When you have a retail business, you're limited by your four walls. There's only so much capacity you can drive through a drive-through at a McDonald's, or if you're at a Sport Clip, how many chairs you have. Once those chairs are full, you're not going to get more heads through that business, right? But when you have a home services business, it's expansive, right? Because you're really dealing in customers' homes, which means you're not limited by your four walls. You're limited just by how big you can build that business, which for somebody who loves growth and scaling, I was like, oh, this is awesome. And the other thing I found that was awesome was the profitability. For those of you who've never worked in retail, especially food service, especially fast food, you're excited if you get up to like 8 or 9% net profit. You should be flogging yourself if you're hitting an 8 or 9% net profit in the painting industry. So the amount of money that can be made when you run this business right is amazing. So I do want to talk about my experience though, because obviously, you said people aren't, they're not going to listen to you if you haven't, picked up a paintbrush. Now I want to let everyone know that I actually ran crews. So it's a long story, but in my time with Enhance, after I left working for Enhance Corporate, there was a period of time where I actually went and helped went to work for some former franchise owners of mine. And I actually, for over a year, was in the field operating Enhance businesses. I actually worked on a truck running and training crews and operations in LA. I did in-home sales for another franchise owner and helped build the crews. So I've actually managed crews on the ground. There is a picture of me somewhere with an HVLP sprayer spraying cabinet doors. I can do that with the best of them. I actually refinished Steve's cabinets, I don't know, a couple of years ago when he was remodeling his kitchen. So yeah, I have experienced that. It's not just running, a painting business, but I understand running the crews, being in the homes, estimating and selling to clients, and it's maybe not many years that a lot of these guys have, but I've been there.
And you've also got not carrying transitions, but it was home helpers.
Actually, it was comfort keepers.
Comfort keepers.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah,
okay.
Senior care, and that's another in-home.
You're in senior care, and there are a couple of other ones, or am I mistaken?
Yeah, so taking it in order, I worked for McDonald's in hamburgers. I worked for Sport Clips and haircuts, home services, obviously. I had Enhance, Wood Renewal, then Housemasters, which was home inspections. So I worked with them for a period of time. Obviously, then Comfort Keepers, which is another home service, but it's in the senior care industry. That's a whole other very interesting business, by the way. And then, of course, Fresh Coat. Now,
That's not nearly enough home service experience.
but it's all.
I'm sorry.
By the way,
I'm
I
sorry.
love to
You've been
say, oh, guys, you'll
disqualified
like
here.
this: hamburgers, haircuts, home services, healthcare. It's all H's. It's great.
So, if you had to share a story or two about some of your best and your favorite owner success stories, where you're like, as I so often am at the Academy Awards dinner every year, even though it's personally, I don't know why, it's a weird tick I have where I don't like praise for whatever reason. I didn't ever get any growing up, so I decided I don't need any of it from anybody else. And so when I get it now, it makes me feel weird. Yeah. And so, but I get to see these people that, were starting at 300,000 and they're struggling. Now they're at 3 million or 4 million or 5 million. You forget how long you've been working with them and where they were. They're always unsatisfied with where they are, but I often have to remind them of where they were. Right. So talk about some of your owner success stories, things that, if you're like me, keep you wanting to do this.
Exactly. And there are I'm blessed. There's quite a few of them that are really fun, but, even with Fresh Coat, I mean, one of the things that's really fun is, and I think our audience probably understands that there's inflection points. There's inflection points in every business, but in the painting business, I call them sticking points, right? It seems like, if you look across all the painting contractors and how they grow, there's just these spots where they stick. And some people can never really get past it, but it's fun when they do. I think a fun story, Jimmy Zeski, who's a member, by the way, it takes a village sometimes to get people moving. Jimmy was stuck in and around that $500,000 mark for several years, actually, it felt like, and he was working with you and doing reactivation, and we were coaching him, and we're like, Jimmy, you got to hire somebody. You're not going to get off this mark until you hire an estimator, right? Well, anyway, he finally does, and he literally he doubles his business in 1 year, and his profitability doubled. I mean, those are the kinds of stories that are fun. Sarah Ross, who is our top franchise owner, and was stuck in and around that mark. Did not want to hire an estimator. Did not want to hire anybody, and and she finally hired that estimator. Now she has 3. She's pushing over $2.5 million and growing, and those are the kinds of stories that are fun and keep us coming back. I could tell stories like that from all of the businesses I was in. It's amazing. The thing that has amazed me the most, not only it's always fun to see somebody achieve more than they ever thought they could. I think that's the fun part about the business, is when you finally get that success and you're like, wow, I never thought I could do this, and I'm making more money than I ever thought I could. Those are the kinds of stories that make me happy. But I've seen businesses. In my Comfort Keepers days, I had a business owner who was stuck at around $3.5 million, and it was. You guys sometimes you think it's some big thing. Often it's a small thing in your business that's holding you back, and a small change can have a really big result. I had a business that went from $3.5 million to $8 million in 2 years, and all the profitability, and actually improved their profitability measures, and it was just one thing that was holding them back, and it was something they could fix. They just didn't see it. So sometimes. Why do you want to be in groups? Why do you want to join a group like APPC? Why do you want to have a coach? Why do you want to talk to other owners? Because it's hard to see your own business objectively. It really is. And having an outside set of eyes, even if it's another business owner, look at your business, they can sometimes see things you can't. Because, as I say, when you're hacking through the jungle, it's like, this is a Covey quote, one of my favorites. When you're hacking through the jungle, it's the leader that crawls to the top of the highest tree, surveys the area, and calls down, wrong jungle.
Wrong jungle.
and you know what the managers down below say? Shut up, we're making progress. It's like, so anyway, yeah, that's one of the things. That's what keeps me coming back, is seeing people achieve really what they want to achieve out of their business.
So you've been here at Casa de Lewis, which is where we are presently, for a week, which is torture, just pure torture. And we have worked our little keisters off on various projects. We're excited. Kind of give folks an idea of some of the things we've been working on, things that you see as opportunities in both coaching and in done-for-you services, things that you're going to be helping us do to bring more value to the membership and to elevate their businesses.
Well, obviously, first of all, leadership training. We've put together a program. I think is an outstanding program for the summit in leadership training. Really, I like breaking things down. One thing you and I have in common: break it down to the simplest. I think people overcomplicate things. Not that you can not complicate. But to me, it's about drawing things down to the simple things that you do to make a business go forward. And sometimes when we complicate things, it stops us from doing things. And so I think, for those of you who'll have the opportunity to be at Summit and see that leadership presentation, I think you're going to take away a lot of really practical tools that can get you moving. There's some, so the leadership piece is a huge, we've talked about the peer groups. I love peer groups. I love the impact it has on not just the results for owners, but the quality of life. I think we forget when you're a business owner, there's nothing lonelier than being a business owner.
Agreed.
And because when you're running your business, even when you grow a big business, nobody else is walking in the shoes of the owner. And the beautiful thing about those peer groups is you now get to have that cohort of other owners. It's kind of, somebody once described it, I finally get to have adult conversations, about my business with other business owners. But so peer groups, so leadership and peer groups. I'm a numbers girl. I love metrics. You guys will get tired. I nerd out on metrics, but those are so important in the business.
They are.
Measuring your business and being able to benchmark. So I'm hoping to bring, especially through the peer groups, I'm hoping to work with some of the members and really start bringing some really good benchmark information. I have some benchmark information, obviously, from my Fresh Coat days, but I think that's something where we can work together and bring that. Done for you services, we've been talking for a long time. Mm-hmm. Reactivation is so important, and yet it's so hard to do, especially when you're so busy and you're caught up in the business. And I don't know, I'm sure my Fresh Coat owners have always said, God, I wish I could just give somebody a credit card and get reactivation done. And I'm sure your members have said the same thing because
it also becomes, it's like you've got this staff.
Yeah.
They're working their butts off to try to handle the standard volume of business. Right. Now all of a sudden you got to kind of stop and do something completely different, and then guess what? It creates this ton of business as you're doing it. So the person that's trying to administer it also has to deal with the incoming leads.
Right. It's like a tsunami almost.
And
Thank
you have
God.
Newsletter marketing. We've talked about
Yeah.
Performing that both digitally and through the snail mail because that is so important to retention.
Yeah. There's, no promises, but those are some of the things that I think, we're really looking at that can take it to the next level. And, we're going to look at what do people need? And how can we help them get it? So
there's some things I've learned over the years that if I don't do it for folks, they won't do it, even though I wish they would. And it's been helpful to do that. So to close things out, what are just a few thoughts that you have for owners who are stuck somewhere? They know they want to grow, but they're struggling. What are your parting words of wisdom, something uplifting for us to finish the program on?
Oh, wow. Uplifting. That's a tall order for me. No, my first mentor these were all posted in our offices, but this is words of wisdom. It's like, expect nothing, blame no one, and do something. Okay. Now that's not uplifting, but it's good advice, right? But I will say this, and I think the thing that, and I said this earlier, if you want to see a change in your business, the business mirrors your behavior. And if you want to see a change in your business, you have to physically change something you're doing. But the good news is it doesn't have to be big stuff. Changing little stuff can have huge results. The story I was telling about doubling a $3.5 million business came from a really small change in mindset and a change in activity to get a tremendous amount of growth. And so, that's the thing I will tell you is, if you're wanting things to change, you don't have to make huge, big change. Make small changes. Do one thing different tomorrow that you didn't do today, and you're going to get a different result from your business. And there's little things. We could go through a list of them here with what you should be doing in your painting business, but we'll save that for
another time.
For another time. So,
well, I've enjoyed this interview, Tara. Thank you for your time. Thank you for working so hard and spending so much time to bring so many values, so much more value rather, to our members. I'm excited about what the future will hold. And cheers.
Cheers.
I've drank more than you have, which is typical. All right, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this program. If you're looking to grow your painting business and this is the first time you've stumbled upon us, please do go to paintersacademy.com, get those free resources and tools. And for those of you who are Painters Academy members, look forward to good things. Can't wait to talk to you next time. I'm Brandon Lewis with the Painters Academy, signing off.